In this episode of Hotelier's Voice, we're looking at reducing OTA reliance, at how independent hotels can earn more from their bookings by driving more direct without sacrificing revenue to third-party commissions. Sleeping Bear Hotels share their story of working with digital growth partner Formula on how they've capitalized on their digital marketing and website. Joining me will be Tudor Hopkins, founder of Sleeping Bear Hotels, and Adam Hamadache, CEO and founder of Formula, the digital growth agency for hotel.
Hotelier's Voice. Exploring opportunity in hospitality with Ryan Haynes. Hear from the people making a difference. From revenue to operations, marketing to digitalization, learn the thinking behind their decisions.
Hello, Tudor. Thanks ever so much for joining us today to look at this issue in regards to driving these direct bookings and really securing better revenue for hotels. Now, you are the founder of Sleeping Bear Hotels. You've got a property in Dorchester. Can you tell us a little bit more, please?
I sure can. Good to meet you, Ryan. Good to see you, Adam. I'm the founder of Sleeping Bear Hotels. We're a 29-bedroom hotel over in Dorchester in Dorset. I've actually been around the hotel business for about 30 years, and I know I don't look that old, but I am. Started in London hotels, 5-star hotels, left London, bought a hotel, sold a hotel. And then I really got into that sort of 3-star all service space. I bought a small little group of hotels in Somerset and Wiltshire. We were doing weddings, we were doing events, we were doing food, we were doing beverage, we were doing accommodation, we were doing a lot. Margins tight, this is like almost pre-cost of living. Margins tight, payroll big. We struggled, it was, one hotel doing well, then the other one wouldn't, then the other one wouldn't, the other one wouldn't. It was real kind of round we used to go. Post-COVID, sold those hotels, and I've always wanted to do something a little bit different. And I looked for a hotel in a city centre location where we could remove the things that didn't make any money. So we bought the Wessex Royal, Best Western, it's a catchy name, in Dorchester, 29 keys, right on the high street, in very good nick. We bought it, we closed the restaurant, we closed the bar, we closed all F&B, we streamlined check-in, we started using a bit of contactless check-in, we reduced the payroll from, drum roll, 41%, which I know was rubbish, but that wasn't me. It's now running at 13, everybody. So wow. Big change. We changed operating profit from 8% to 26%. So a huge turnaround. So Sleeping Bear Hotel Dorchester is a city centre room-only hotel, which might not sound exciting, but it is, because we're actually making money. Our guests are voting with their feet. We're running 85, 90% occupancy. We can be very clever with our pricing because we don't carry loads of payroll. And we partnered. We are a partnership hotel. So we partnered with restaurants, cafes. We have little brochures in the room. Our guests go out into the community. Most hotels, their own ecosystem, people come, they sleep, they eat, they drink, they leave. The local restaurants don't get a look in. With us, we don't have a restaurant, they go out. So that's kind of what we're doing. That's kind of where we are. And so far, so good. We've been at it 18 months.
Excellent. I mean, that's fantastic. I mean, Dorchester's stunning. It's just down the road from me. It is an absolutely beautiful place. Lots of independent restaurants, shops and bars. And I can just imagine, you offer so much more of an experience that way for people who are visiting the area and really get to experience what's on the doorstep. Now, just tell me, before we dive a little bit further, really around this sort of like managing that profit, reducing those services. I mean, is the only income coming from rooms, or do you have other areas at all within the business that you're able to generate income?
So we have some meeting space, and we do a few meetings. But if I'm honest with you, I've already had those redrawn for bedrooms. So we're a bit early to do the conversion yet, but I think probably this time next year, we'll convert some of that meeting space, including the main kitchen that's now closed. So no chefs, everybody. That will go into 7 bedrooms. That's what's been drawn out. So not only have we closed down unprofitable areas, but we're then going to reopen them as profitable rooms. So to answer your question, 97% rooms accommodation revenue.
So basically, you need to make as much money as you possibly can do from those rooms. You don't want to be giving it away to anybody.
100%
So
right.
you had a plan of action. You knew that you needed to be able to get as much direct bookings as you possibly could. You were reliant on OTAs. I mean, what was the situation there?
So, yeah, I mean, you make a really interesting point, Ryan, about we've only got bedrooms. With all the hotels that I've run, I've had to, as many hotel owners, operators had to manage all the different areas. So it's actually quite hard to focus on one thing. A lot of plate spinning, not able to really grip anything fully. Now I've got rid of everything, I can do that. So for me, it's all about the cost of sales of every booking that comes to us. So the age old, how do we tackle the OTAs? And yeah, look, we were heavily reliant on OTAs when I got there. I would say it was probably 60% OTA, 30% direct, and 10% other. And other is like, GDS and a few other unusual channels. So yeah, we were extremely heavily reliant. And look, it seems to me that there are now so many tools out there that it's kind of death by tools. And as a hotel owner, that can be overwhelming. And you go to these trade shows and it is quite hard to ascertain what works and what doesn't. And actually, that's when we ended up partnering last August with Adam and his team at Formula. And the results have been pretty good, if I'm honest.
So before let's go back up there. Before you got involved with Adam, I mean, you had your partners and you had your website. How are you managing all of that? Because I guess, are you a digital marketing specialist, or did you have somebody you were sort of trying to figure it out with?
Okay, you know, I'm 29 rooms. So people listen to this, there might be 39, 50, 100 rooms. At 29 rooms, you have limited budget to start bringing in people to do digital stuff. So I guess I was doing a lot of it on my own. I had outsourced my SEO to an agency in India. So they were doing the SEO for me. I was doing Google Ads myself. And really trying to do as best as I could with the tools that I had in front of me. I was using a revenue management tool. I'm still using a revenue management tool, Room Price Genie, so that's dynamic pricing, which is obviously very important. But that pricing that doesn't help in terms of cost of sale, in terms of OTA. So it was trying to find someone who could help us to sort of disseminate that space.
Excellent, Tudor. Let's bring in Adam now, because I mean, you are obviously a key part to this puzzle when it comes to understanding, the direction and that strategy to be able to secure the best opportunities for direct bookings and also maximize the amount of revenue you're getting through that direct channel. So your digital growth agency, what was that plan of action that you worked with for Sleeping Bear Hotels?
Yeah, sure. So we developed a solution called the Hotel Growth Formula probably a couple of years ago, 3 years ago now, I think it was. And really, it was sort of off the back of, I've been working in hotel marketing for about 15 years. Formula's been running for 13 years. I was a director of my own hotel, some years ago. So we've taken all of that experience and realized that actually, when you silo up marketing into SEO or PPC, those can be effective, but God, can it be really effective when those things start working together and you have a sort of a very holistic strategy. So really what we did with Sleep and Bear Hotel is to apply all facets of that strategy. So it starts from the very first search, where a customer's searching, making sure the hotel is as visible as physically possible across wherever they're searching, I should say, not just traditional search, but also with the emergence of AI search, maximizing conversion on the website using a number of different tools and other technology partners, and making sure that we stay present throughout the customer decision booking process, which can often take weeks or even months, and we do that through a number of different remarketing tactics, shall we say? So it's sort of we've found this dare I say holistic approach to work at absolutely improving visibility, driving conversion up, and reducing reliance on OTAs as it has done for Tudor.
I mean, where do you sort of make sure that you are actually delivering? Because I mean, there's so much talk from digital agencies that they can do this, that, and the other. There's so many aspects to digital marketing and also driving the traffic to the website, but also it's changing so fast, so quickly. How do you build that model that you can have the confidence that you can deliver?
Sorry, can I actually answer that, Adam? Because I think I can actually answer that. I'm sure you've got an answer as well, Adam, but that was exactly the question I wanted to know, because people can talk the talk, but can they walk the walk? I looked at before we came on this, I just looked at like February, for example. I'm looking on here, our OTA was about 60% before. Now we're at 25% OTA with 65% direct. I know I'm a small hotel. I sold 540 rooms in February this year. I worked out the costs. So the old cost with OTA commission, £5,700. The new cost with only 25% coming through OTA, 3,200. That is a saving in February of 2,400. That month was not very good. I can tell you that. We've had a tough winter. From April onwards, you can double that saving. And look, I'm on 29 bedrooms, so I'm not a big hotel, but that's the proof in the pudding to me. It's like, and we track very carefully, and I think that's important that you have to do this. What's coming through OTA, what's coming through direct. And if we've got year-on-year data, we can just directly compare that. So I feel like that is a sort of an easy way for a hotelier to navigate that, because there are so many promises made, and it is quite hard to sometimes quantify that. Apologies, Adam.
No, I mean, fantastic figures, and I'm so pleased that it's all working out as it is. I think, to draw on your question, Ryan, I think I've been running Formula for 13 years. My role has changed wildly in the last 2 years. Previously, I was fundamentally concerned about obviously getting new business in and making sure we're delivering results. I've now feel like I've got a third strand to my role, and that is keeping abreast of change. So daily I am reading. I subscribe to FocusWise, probably the best source of travel insight, I would suggest, and read every article pretty much to do with AI search. And I think it's not just me; it's my head of SEO. We send her around the world to make sure that she's abreast of all the big changes. We've added in our as head of SEO is called Rose. We've added in a Ask Rose feature into our weekly huddle, where she we hold a load of questions, and she keeps us abreast so that we can inform clients. I think the shift that digital marketers have had to adjust to in the last few should we say 18 months is not being afraid to go to the client and saying, we think we need to pivot. This is working now, but we think based on this new data, based on this new algorithm update, based on this new consumer searching trends, we should be doing some stuff over here. And that requires sometimes difficult conversations when things are going well. And even when things perhaps are not going well, we're asking for that extra little bit of faith that it's a total mess out there. We're navigating things as best we can for you. And I think that's the big shift. You've got to be a student of this change. And if you are not, then you're almost falling behind. That I would say is certainly the big shift that I've felt in my role.
I mean, well, let's look at KPIs for a second. I mean, obviously, endpoint, you need the direct bookings, you need the bookings to be coming through. But where do you look to get guidance as to your strategies working, that it's moving the dial in the right direction for your customers as you start to deploy the plan of action?
Yeah, I mean, I think from my side, it's really heavily relying on benchmark data. We talked about some of the technology that we've applied to the Sleeping Bear Hotel as part of our strategy, and one technology partner that we've lent on quite heavily over the last few years is the Hotels Network. They've obviously just been bought out by Lighthouse. They've just launched a direct booking, or they were the first direct booking app to be approved by ChatGPT. So they're right up there in terms of at the coalface of what is possible with technology. And what I like about their variety of solutions is that you can get comp set data to allow us to understand, right, okay, what's the booking lead time? How does it compare? What's the average room rate, which is great, which obviously your RMS would tend to do as well. But, being able to lean heavily on that benchmark data, I think is really essential for certainly from the conversion and the revenue. But then it's also about, looking at year on year, say traditional SEO data like impressions and clicks, but doing so in a way that considers the context. So, we at the time of recording, we're in the midst of a new Google core update, which basically means Google's a mess, and it will be for about 3 weeks. And Booking.com sees enormous volumes of traffic go up, and most of our clients are seeing total disruption. So it's about looking at some of this data year on year and saying what was happening at the time, and is it directly comparable? And I think it's having that detailed understanding about what is happening in the search environment. That's probably the biggest change that is happening in hotels right now. Is the whole point about discovery is fundamentally shifting. Everyone used to Google. Now, obviously, ChatGPT is in the mix amidst other channels. So it's just keeping abreast of all this stuff, which is interesting, shall we say.
Yeah, I can imagine. And obviously, with the need to keep up with the tech stack and how you're utilizing that data to the best advantage, things are changing so frequently, particularly with global economic change as well, as perhaps we're seeing seen over the last couple of years. I guess you're not having to be a specialist on how people are using Google. You're also having to really understand consumer sentiment, how and where how they're planning their bookings, their booking windows, and tap in a lot more closely with Tudor and again understanding as to what those booking patterns are looking like?
I would say so. I mean, I think Tudor's a slight exception to this, but we have, as an agency, liaised more closely with revenue managers than we ever have done, because the revenue managers tend to be very, trend based by the nature of their role. Now, obviously, Tudor does that role in his business, and that's great that he's got that skill set, and obviously the great technology of Room Price Genie. And I think it's about making sure that everything is aligned. The whole premise of great revenue management is looking at what the market is doing and adjusting it for the most profitable rate, at its core. I mean, I'm not a revenue management specialist, but that's pretty much it, at its most basic level. So, what we need to be doing is making sure from a marketing standpoint, we have distribution in the right ways. I think we're going to see enormous change over the next 2 years in terms of where the bookings are actually happening, given that ChatGPT is going quite aggressive on, encouraging the whole booking journey. I don't think we're quite there yet, but it will certainly change in the coming coming years. And I think, yeah, it's just it's no longer, we used to historically be, given an SEO retainer, and off we went for a month and say, hey, this is what we've done. This is the report. Everyone happy? Yep, cool. Things are moving great. Okay, wonderful. Let's crack on. Now it is a much more collaborative experience because of how much we need to know about what's going in the hotel, and I think that's probably testament to the changing environment that we find ourselves in, certainly from a marketing standpoint.
Things are moving so fast, aren't they, Tudor? I mean, the technology that's now at your fingertips and what you're able to do now as a business person. And whilst you have reduced the level of services to a very limited room-only option at the Sleep and Bear hotels, it sounds like you've been able to get your grips around the revenue side of things. And whilst they're not paying us for this or sponsoring this episode, this Rue Price Genie platform is an interesting one. It's providing you, I guess, with the insights to really manage that revenue in a way that optimizes a pricing at any given point.
Yeah, absolutely, Ryan. And I'm not sure I'll stick with them. I actually think they're slightly slipping, if I'm honest with you, in the marketplace. It's just one of those, I know it really well, so it's really easy to use. But I think I sometimes override what it's telling me, because I just, and you can have a long conversation about how they do it and how other people do it. But I do think, like, someone mentioned, I think Adam mentioned Lighthouse. I think they've got a really interesting tool that, probably we might migrate to in the not too distant future. But yeah, having a revenue management tool does allow me to control my rates and to be involved in the process. I think what Adam touched on before about managing the fast pace of what's going on out there. And I, as a hotelier in Dorset, am not as plugged in perhaps as I would like to be. I'm running my hotel, I'm doing my stuff. Having someone like Formula, they're sending out newsletters, they're telling us what's going on, they're advising us. And I think that is one of the key elements, because you can go to a trade show and get overwhelmed by tech stacks and the greatest new thing and AI and all this stuff. And you come away, as I do, with my head spinning. Adam and his team are kind of doing that for us. And I think that's something that, is important, because I don't have time to do it. So I think that's the other piece in the puzzle we get from Formula. They're letting us know, oh, there is this massive Google update, so strap in, or this is going to happen, or AI is going to start doing the whole customer journey piece. That's going to be happening over the next 18 months. I know I don't need to actually worry about that too much, because Adam and his team will eventually say to me, yeah, okay, we need to get on with that. Let's do it. And that's great. And look, they're not in India. My team out there, they were great. Love them. But these guys are all UK based. They get the UK market. And there is something in that, I think.
Fantastic. That's great to learn. I mean, and your relationship with Adam is not something that just happened overnight. This is something that he's taken a while to grind you down to find a place that you call home where you really need his help.
I mean, I think grinding down, I've been in London hotels a lot. Adam and I have known each other many years, and that is the beauty of our industry, I would say. Like, if you've been around long enough, you kind of get to know everyone. And I love that about hospitality. And you bump into old friends and people you've worked with back in the day, and I love all that. And yeah, I mean, it's just a pleasure to work with him and his team. And it isn't just him. I mean, Adam's, flying around the world doing I don't know what, speaking at all these events. It's his team who are, doing the day to day, and they're great. So that's half the battle for a little hotelier over in Dorset.
Tudor, thank you ever so much for your story today and contributing. And finally, Adam, can I just ask you, for hoteliers out there, realistically, what sort of investment should they be thinking about when it comes to making sure that they can achieve a similar result as what Tudor and Sleep and Bear Hotels has been able to achieve?
Listen, it really depends on the size of your hotel. Obviously, Tudor has a fantastic property, 29 bedrooms. Obviously, the investment level is proportionate to the level of support that one needs. But I think to do it effectively, you need to be doing across multiple channels. So I think, look, there's not a straight answer, but I think if you're not spending at the very least 4 figures on some form of search engine optimization, or some form of organic visibility, then you are probably moving backwards.
Tudor, Adam, thank you ever so much for sharing your story with us today.
Pleasure, guy.
Thanks for having us.
So you've been listening to Hotelier's Voice. I'm pleased to say that the website is now live, hoteliersvoice.com, and we have a load of new events on there. Join the Hospitality Roundtable Roadshow as we go on the road to Stratford-upon-Avon, Kent and London. We've got 2 more dates to add for 2026. It's in partnership with Hosper, Hospitality Action, as well as Focus on Hospitality, Oracle Hospitality, and a number of other supporters. So check us out. We look forward to seeing you there and having more of these conversations. I'm your host, Ryan Haynes. Ciao for now.